Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Christine Lee. I'm back today for another episode. Today, I have a wonderful guest. She is an artist, an author, and a podcast host. And we have mutual friends in Tracy Otsuka, who has been a guest on my show before. Miriam is here to talk about her brand new book, Artpreneur. And I just want to welcome Miriam to the show. I'm grateful to have you here. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, Christine. It's such an honor to be on your show.
So, Miriam, thank you for being here again. And let's just start with who you are. Who is Miriam Schulman? How'd you get to be the author? How'd you get to be the artist? And whatever you'd like to share with us today.
Okay, how far back do we go? This always reminds me of the All in the Family, Edith Bunker's 40th reunion when her friend says, so like, how are you? What have you done since high school? And she starts from like year by year by year. And like he wants to hang himself. Okay, so I want to start off telling my artist journey very similar to what I talk about inside Artpreneuer, and that is, I wanted to be an artist. I really did, but I came from a single family household. My father passed away when I was 5 years old, and I didn't believe that this was possible for me. My mother wanted me to be a doctor. Doctor's wife was also an option, or I would be a disappointment. Like maybe I could be an engineer. That would be a runner up.
Hmm.
My sister, by the way, is a doctor.
Okay.
So, okay. And so I took the practical route like most people, and I did not become an artist. And instead, since I figured I had to pay off all these student loans and the whole point was to make money, where's the most money made? On Wall Street. So I went to Wall Street. And I never stopped painting on the side, but I didn't believe I could make a living that way. And it wasn't until 9/11 happened that I had a wake up call that, oh, I'm not I'm not doing that. I could have died in that. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not going back to work. I actually had at that time was on an extended maternity leave and I had thoughts that I would return, and I made the decision not to.
Hmm.
I still didn't believe that I could make a living as an artist,
Hmm.
but I was working at it, and to make ends meet, I took a job as a Pilates instructor, which is and we both are from the New York area. New York Sports Club was the gym I joined, and they do an excellent job of training their instructors. And one of the ways they make money is with upsells, and that's personal training packages. So when they were teaching the instructors how to do this, how to sell personal training packages, how to upsell our clients, that's when I had my aha moment. I was like, oh, so I can use all these things that you're teaching me to sell my artwork. And that was over 20 years ago. So I from that point on, I put all my effort into selling my art and learning and mastering the art of marketing.
Wonderful. That is a great story of your development, of the trials and tribulations that you had to experience. I think we didn't hear the day in and day out, but we heard that you had to make important decisions and you had to take jumps and leaps of faith along the way. Absolutely. And it sounds like you have been a painter throughout. Yes? Were you painting all your life?
Yeah, so I mean, describe painting all my life. So when I was in high school, this is what my art looked like. First period was fonts. Second period was drawing my teachers. Third period is drawing classmates. I mean, obviously these weren't real classes. I was in, physics and whatever else we do in high school. But that was kind of my own curriculum, was doing drawing and things like that. I did take art classes in college. It wasn't I did a kind of a hybrid major with art history because I really wasn't going to graduate if that wasn't part of my major, because I was taking so many art classes. And I just continued doing things on the side. So when I was in graduate school, I did pastels. And when I started working on Wall Street is when I learned watercolor painting. And that became my medium of choice when I had small kids because you can paint at home, it's not toxic. It doesn't require a lot of cleanup, so the baby starts crying. It's not like I've ruined a brush or left something dangerous lying around. So that was my choice of artwork.
Okay. What kind of confidence issues did you experience during that leap from, okay, it's 9/11, I've changed my mind, I'm going for it. What then happened emotionally?
Yeah. So, what happened to me is very similar to what's happened in the last few years. So, there's nothing like a crisis that lifts a veil over what's not working in your life and finding meaning in your life. And that's why since the pandemic millions of people have walked away from their jobs and in my line of work, I'm always meeting these what I call them pandemic artists, people who decided to become an artist during the pandemic, and there's a lot of statistics to back this up. So, this is what led to the book is that the Etsy's sellers within a very short period of time, like I think just during 2020 alone, it swelled from 3 million art sellers to 5 million. I don't know how much it is today, but it was a very significant jump in the number of people making careers out of their creativity.
I did not know that. I find that easy to believe and also remarkable at the same time. And also just backing up what you're saying about lifting the veil, that people are wanting to focus more on what is truly meaningful for them when they come into a crisis situation. Did you have your own nerves about shifting, or was it just like an easy decision?
No, it's nothing what how is anything ever easy? But here's the thing, and I talk about this in my book, I call it Break Free from the Golden Handcuffs, and the point of that chapter really is that so we as humans, we've evolved for survival. We have not evolved for goal achievement. And so it's very difficult for us to when we're going to take a risk, and we feel uncomfortable, our brain can't tell the difference between the danger of starting a new business, sending out an email, posting on social media. It can't tell the difference between those uncomfortable feelings and maybe leaving the cave and getting eaten by a tiger. What I point out in the book, Break Free from Your Golden Handcuffs, whatever those metaphorical golden handcuffs are, is that you can't just think about those metaphorical bears, tigers, and sharks outside of your cave because guess what? There are snakes inside the cave. And for me, a woman working on Wall Street in the 90s, there were a lot of snakes, and I don't know what the landscape looks like now. I'm imagining it's not things haven't changed that much given our political landscape as well. So, I mean, I experienced everything sexual harassment, being passed over for promotions. So all those things that were happening that made the work environment quite miserable. That was enough. It's like that a nice Nin quote that like it was staying the same became too uncomfortable. So that became the motivation for me. So that's what I'm seeing why so many people are taking this step now is because they see the risks of staying the same, the risk of staying the same, of staying in a job that could change on a dime, that it's at the whims of, something like a pandemic or being laid off or what happened with the lockdowns and everything. So there are a lot of risks of not changing, and that discomfort outweighed the discomfort of change.
Okay. That's a wonderful explanation of how you survived that period. And can you describe the process you went through as an artist who was then also having to sell and market her work? What kinds of experiences were important for you during that phase of your business?
Well, I mean, I definitely made a lot of mistakes along the way. And this is what I help my students with. Many of it is having to do with mindset around your pricing, the very common belief that cheaper is easier to sell, which it isn't.
Mhm.
Uh, and how you could actually hurt yourself when you price yourself too low. So I went through many of those mistakes I kind of lost the thread of your question now.
Just
What what what,
just kind of
what I went through, like the
yeah,
discomfort.
different
So
phases. Yeah.
yeah, for me, I came from a very from a place of sharing what I was doing, and I still feel this way. This is why I find marketing is a joyful process. I don't feel sleazy when I'm doing it because I'm not trying to trick anybody into buying something they don't want. I have something that is beautiful to offer, whether that offering is here's this portrait of your child. You want it? You don't want it? You're missing out, and I don't say that to them, but that's how I feel about it.
Mhm.
I feel like the world misses out. And yeah, you know what? Not everybody gets it. Just like, Beyonce, hugely popular. Not everybody likes her music. So it's fine. I'm not for everybody, but that's how I feel about all the things that I sell. Like my book, I honestly feel anyone who doesn't read my book is missing out. So I feel like it's a beautiful thing. So I don't feel bad about marketing what I have. I don't feel sleazy doing it. I feel like I'm coming from a place of sharing, like I'm having this great party and do you want to come? Like the water's warm in my pool. We got some cold beers over here. I come from that very excited place about what it is that I do, whether throughout time, whether that was selling my art, selling my classes when that was became my focus, and now with the book and my coaching program, I feel the same way. It's like I have something beautiful to offer and I can't wait to share it.
And you've always had that thought?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
My biggest mindset blocks came when I started writing the book. I definitely had that imposter syndrome, like, oh, this was a big mistake. I have no idea what I'm doing. So those thoughts come up. Those are my sabotagers. Are I, I didn't have the sabotager or thinking that selling is a bad thing, which I know many artists do have that problem. That was not never my problem. I've had other problems though.
Okay. Take us through the imposter syndrome piece.
Okay. So, the thing is the bigger you get, the you actually get more, not less imposter syndrome because now you're playing a bigger game. So with me, it came with writing the book, and I had 100% belief that I would get an agent. I had 100% belief I'd get a publishing contract. I do not know why I believed these things. I guess I was naive. It's a good thing I didn't know how hard it is for most people. Because I was like, of course it's going to happen for me. Of course. I just have to follow these steps and it will happen. And there really is something powerful about having that belief, choosing to believe. However, so I hadn't thought ahead to the actual writing process. So I get the contract, I get the agent, I get the contract, and then they say to me, come back in 6 months when your manuscript is done. And that's when I said, oh no, they made a huge mistake. I should just give them back my advance. I have no idea what I'm doing. So, and I don't want to leave your listeners in this spot for long. Obviously, I did finish writing the book, and it is not a ghostwritten book. I did write the book, but I did get help. I had a book coach help me through this. But one of the two most powerful things that I did to help me get to that finish line was number one, I had a mentor, Dr. Eric Maisel. He writes on creativity, and I said to him, Eric, I understand about a shitty first draft, but I'm still struggling. He says, well, the problem, Miriam, is you don't understand that you need to be willing to write a shitty first book. And when he said that, that set me free and I understood because that was something that I was willing to do with my artwork. I was willing to be a bad artist before I became a good artist. So then I had to be willing to be a bad writer or write a bad book, which it isn't. It's a great book, but I was willing to go to that place. And I said to myself, I made a schedule, and the schedule was ass and chair, ugly words. And I knew that the only thing I had control over during this process was meeting my deadline. And so that's what got me there, was committing to making that deadline. Now, Christine, you're asking me about confidence. Here is the secret about confidence. So, and it's great if I can tell a story about
Sure.
this. So, okay. So, in my book, I talk about, in the book, I call her Margaret. She is a real person, but Margaret is not her real name. So this client, Margaret, came to me and she said to me, I'm not getting the things done I need to do. I said, oh, why do you think that is? Why do you think you're procrastinating? She says, it's because I lack confidence. And I said, oh no, Margaret, it's the other way around. The reason you lack confidence is because you procrastinate. And the whole definition of confidence is self trust. So every time Margaret was procrastinating, she was eroding her self trust. She was not doing what she said she was going to do. And I said, this is how we change this for you. You will commit to doing what you say you're going to do, and your confidence will grow. And of course it did for her. And that's how I get through, is I do what I say I'm going to do.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is great coaching that you got from Dr. Maisel and great coaching that you gave to Margaret. I agree wholeheartedly that we have to escape any ideas that we can and should be perfect, because that can really stop us dead in the tracks, no matter how talented we are or how passionate we are about things, as you've described. And that we have to go with faith in order to get a healthy sense of confidence. We have to actually be doing the action work before we see that a lot of those energy sparks that we're hoping for, that we're hoping to start with. Oftentimes we have to start before we get them. So thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that really great tip. Terrific. So now, I'm glad you met the deadlines. That's wonderful. And that you had a great strategy while while going through. What has happened since the publication of the book? How has it changed you? How has your voice changed? How has your teaching and coaching changed since you've completed that part?
Oh, that's such a great question. Okay, so we're recording this not quite the end of February, and the book came out January 31st. So we're less than a month in to it. But definitely it has fine-tuned my message. So I'm a much different, like, interviewer when I go on these podcast interviewers than I was before I wrote the book. Like, it helped writing the book helped me dial in my message, because I really had to work hard. Um, it wasn't just, now I know a lot of people, because I had this thought as well, that you think you go to a cabin and you just write a book and you come out and it's like you gave birth in the woods by yourself and here's your beautiful baby. And it just doesn't work that way. There, like I said, I had a book coach and I would send her chapters and she would show me all the problems with it. And then I thought I was quote unquote done. I hand the manuscript into the publisher, and so I did hand it in the 6 months later, end of December, and then 3 months of silence, because that's how publishers are. You'd like never hear from them. And then March it comes back. And there was, I think it was, I like to describe it like the scene in Harry Potter, where he takes the basilisk's fang and he stabs the diary and the ink is spurting out of it. Now that makes sense if people know Harry Potter. It makes no sense if you don't. Okay. So, yeah, but anyway, there was like, I just felt like the developmental editor killed my book. She hated my book. I was ready to give back my advance. There's many times I had that tantrum. Okay.
Mhm.
Where I was just ready to like quit. But each time it went through this process, it made the book stronger. So there were the edits that she gave me that I was like, oh, okay, I can see how this is a problem. I should take it out. And there were edits that she gave me that was like, no, I disagree. And this is an invitation to dive into my messaging even deeper,
Mhm. Mhm.
even deeper.
Mhm.
And that part has just been so liberating for me, like really seeing where I fall on my own belief scale on things, and really having a strong strong message and a strong point of view.
That's a great description of how personal the process is of writing a book, and it's not like going to the woods and giving birth to a baby by yourself, and and it really is an opportunity to really sharpen your thoughts and your message, and to grow into your passion and message too. Now I'm thinking, I did have another question. Um, I You know, what I was thinking was our conversation before we pressed record about the book. And if we could shift to that part of the conversation, I would love that, because you described how it's really so packed with self development messages and lessons and positive psychology. Please share with us why that's there and why that's so important to you.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I probably didn't talk enough about in the book that I get pushback on is what about talent? Because, in the book I tell about, well, you have, how pricing and prospecting and promotion and productivity. And here's the truth: mindset and marketing are going to trump talent every single time. And really, you can't even be a good marketer unless you have a strong mindset. So the mindset of thinking like an abundant artist rather than a starving artist is laced throughout the book, because no one can take any of my advice unless they can start questioning their limiting beliefs. And they're not going to see these limiting beliefs because anytime, like I said before, anytime you do something uncomfortable, and you have fear and your brain wants to keep you safe, it will come up with all kinds of bullshit stories about why this thing won't work for you. And the smarter you are and the more creative you are, the better you'll be at coming up with these stories. So I have to point out to anyone reading the book, this is something you might be thinking right now, and then showing them like why that isn't true. So thoughts like, and these are the things I hear all the time. And when you say them out loud, they sound ridiculous, but I do. These are real things I hear. Oh, there's not enough people in Australia, to sell their art. And
Yes.
it's like, really? I think there's 30 million people there. I don't know. And Sydney is an art center. So, that's not enough people. They'll think it only works in the US because there's more people there. It's like, I don't know about that. Or I can't sell art because it's a pandemic.
Mhm.
How
Mhm.
many, people have you heard, Christine, like in the beginning of 2020 thought they couldn't sell because it's a pandemic?
Mhm.
Meanwhile, the people who didn't have that thought cleaned up, right?
Yes.
Everybody was shopping during the pandemic, especially artwork. So, and especially, I don't even have to say especially artwork. They were buying everything, everything was selling. I can't sell because there's a looming recession. There's a earthquake in Turkey. So there's things like that. People think there is nobody wants to pay high prices for my stuff, or I'm just starting out. So these are all examples of all or nothing thinking, fortune telling, and mindset reading. And so throughout the book, I educate the reader on where this is coming up, how this is self-sabotaging, and more importantly, how to overcome it.
Yes. Beautiful. You have me wondering, this is a little tangential, but I really am curious about the idea of the starving artist and your own backstory of your feeling like you needed to go into finance instead of art. That whole system has been in play for so long. And do you happen to know what the origin of that is, where there's maybe a sense that we cannot value the work of the artist?
Yeah, I think that the origin of that myth came out of like the idea of the bohemian artist being glorified. But the truth is that artists do not starve. Real artists do not starve. That's something Jeff Goins did a beautiful job of in his book, Real Artists Don't Starve. Talking about Michelangelo was very successful. When I hear artists say, oh, I am a real artist, I only paint what I want. I was like, well, Michelangelo was pimping himself out to the Pope. He didn't even want to paint the Sistine Chapel. We know this. He wanted to only be a sculptor. But apparently there was a lot of money in the Sistine Chapel. And then he did it in his own way. He kind of like did it with a wink, wink and a nudge, nudge in a way that expressed his point of view. So, which in a way that maybe the church wasn't so happy with, like the Last Judgment, where they went and painted loincloths all over that painting. So, real artists do not need to starve. There is plenty of evidence of artists making a successful living, and I think what happens is that there are very few artists that are going to reach the level of being in a museum, but that doesn't mean you can't make a thriving living as an artist, as a musician, as a writer, as whatever it is you want to be. There are definitely paths that are available for people to make a living from their creativity.
Beautiful. What have you noticed about your artist community and the people that you coach uh, as a group? Do they affect each other, and has this positive thinking kind of taking root? What is your sense of what's going on dynamically in your tribe?
Yes. So, first of all, one of the most powerful things is surrounding yourself with other people who are doing the same things. I hear that over and over again from the artists who become successful is that one of their greatest motivators were seeing other people doing the thing that they thought was so scary and they didn't die. So, there's that. And so many of the artists come out of it like, wow, I'm a different person now. I'm a more confident person now. And so that's why, Christine, I said to you before we hit record that the work I do and the book Artpreneuer, it really is a self-development book in disguise as a business book for creatives.
Yeah, this is amazing and so needed. Your work is so needed. Again, everyone, the book is Artpreneur, the step-by-step guide to making a sustainable living from your creativity. And it's Miriam Schulman. And Miriam, could you describe your community and how people can get into the community, stay connected with you, get your experience, wisdom, and inspiration in this way?
Sure. So you can always go to schulmanart.com/biz and see the different ways you can work with me. But if you like what you heard today, come find me at the Inspiration Place podcast, wherever you're listening to Make Time for Success with Dr. Christine Lee. You can find the Inspiration Place.
Terrific, terrific. Miriam, good luck with the rest of the book promotion, the book's growth, your business growth, and your community growth. And I'm so happy that I got to meet you and that we got to talk about your wonderful work and your wonderful viewpoint on what an artist can do. It's really very powerful. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. Please give Miriam a shout out wherever you decide to connect with her. Listen to the podcast and come back and visit me again next Thursday when our next episode drops. Thank you so much, Miriam, and everyone. I'll see you soon.